The year is 2006. Most Wanted has been out for a year and everyone's looking forward to the next title. But what some of you may not realise is Need for Speed was also getting portable releases at the same time that were completely different to the console versions of the game. And this, my friend, is where one of the most underrated Need for Speed games lies. Need for Speed Carbon Own the City is one of the most underrated games in the franchise. It has the customization, the soundtrack ripped from its bigger brother, but in this case you actually hear the licensed soundtrack. It never played in Carbon. It has the online multiplayer, a story which for the most part until the end is really good. We'll talk about that a bit later. The physics, which are ridiculous, and it's all on a PSP. Bruh. I played this game when it first came out in 2006 when I was a bit younger on my own PSP. So nostalgia definitely plays a part, but I'm here today to find out if my fond memories of this game are just purely based on nostalgia or whether this is truly the most slept on Need for Speed game of all time. I played through the entirety of the 6-hour campaign just for this video. To answer the question, is this the most slept on Need for Speed game of all time?
You're going down, bro.
So let's start off with the story. You shouldn't really be expecting stellar storytelling from a Need for Speed game. Someone came in my Twitch chat the other day and said something across the lines of, a Need for Speed story is kind of like a story. You don't play it for the story, it's just a motivation to get you to the end. And you know what? I tend to agree. As I mentioned in the intro, Need for Speed Carbon Own the City story is actually really good until the end. It's told in a comic book strip style, which I actually think is really charming.
Get out of the car.
Yo, do what the man says.
I read about you. You and your brother were known all over town. Too bad he's dead.
Got him! I feel like you can get away with a lot more when it's told this way because, you know, it's not real people and it's just cartoons. The story features a bunch of rival crews, one of which is the Eastsiders gang. You can actually apply Eastsiders liveries in the game, it's pretty cool. The basic premise for the story is about your brother who unfortunately dies in a car crash, and for the rest of the game, you're trying to figure out what happened to him. You were with him on the night that he died, but you don't remember anything because your memory got lost in the car crash. But to cut to the chase, you basically get to the end where you discover a guy called X killed your brother, but you hired him. The reason of which, why you hired him was because he was an abusive brother, so that was the reason you had to kill him?
I know you think I killed your brother, but I didn't. You did.
Bruh.
To him, you were always his idiot younger brother. You hired X to kill Mick.
You honestly can't make this shit up, bro. It's so weird. Yeah, it was really good until they tried to conclude the story. I thought it was a pretty obvious way to conclude it, and you could just say X killed him and that's the end of it. But they had to add a plot twist, which was just shit, and it didn't make any sense, and it was a bit weird. So I'm just gonna erase the last 2 chapters from my memory and pretend like nothing happened. I don't know why they added that plot twist. I think they just did it to make it a bit different, but they didn't really need to do that. And that's it with the story. It's not really that important. It's not really one of the reasons why I think this game is so fantastic. That's why I just wanted to get it over and done with right at the start. Next, let's move on to gameplay. So this is where things get a little bit mad because Need for Speed Carbon Own the City is essentially a modified version of Most Wanted in 2005 on PSP. The progression, for better or for worse, is the same as Most Wanted 2005's Blacklist style progression. Crew members are actually useful in the PSP game, unlike the console version, but the one thing that lets crews down in this game is the fact that the AI are fucking retarded. That is both the enemy racers and your crew members. Oh my god. If the AI wasn't shit, the crew members would be really useful. There's different types of crew members you can allocate, and they'll be in game with you and you can activate them while you're in game. There's assassin that will put down spike strips for you, drafters which are OP, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, and brawlers who will basically take down the opposition opponents if you are close enough to them. It's all good in theory, but the problem is this is 2006 player AI, so sometimes the AI will just completely not know you're there. Sometimes it just won't detect a corner and you'll go straight into the wall. What I will say is when you get used to it and you learn how the AI react to things and it all clicks, I can see what they were going for. But it's so few and far between that AI is not aged well in the slightest. Next, let's talk about the customization. For a PSP game, that came out in 2006. Bruv, this is sick. So the customization carries over from the main games. It's a stripped back version of it, so you don't get front bumpers, rear bumpers, side skirts. It's just a body kit option, select spoilers and rims, etc. No licensed rims, I should mention here also. But considering this game came out in 2006 and what this was doing at the time, it was pretty impressive. Every single car has customization, even the Murcielago, which is the last car you unlock after finishing the story mode. And the car list itself is mad. There's 30 cars, including the Toyota MR2, R34, Gallardo, 67 Mustang. There's lots of choice and lots of varieties here. I should also say that even though this game only has 30 cars, the original Underground, I'm pretty sure, had 18. So that should say a lot compared to how far they came from 2003 to 2006. It's a huge difference. Like 30 cars on a PSP compared to what, the 18 they had, you know, earlier on in that life cycle, not too long ago. It was a huge feat for the PSP at the time. Cars are separated into a tier system as well. This is something which the game doesn't really tell that well. Like, I didn't realize till right at the end that the cars were based on tier systems. And we're going to talk a bit about that when it comes to the progression later. But first, let's talk about the physics. The physics are actually really, really good. So overall, the physics are kind of a more forgiving version of Most Wanted 2005, which makes sense if it's on a PSP. Since it's a smaller screen, you're not looking at a big, you know, TV or whatever. I can understand why it will be a lot easier. But with that being said, don't think this game is easy, because trust me, it's not. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I really enjoyed it though. I really enjoyed how the physics played. I would die to have physics in 2020 on console from a Need for Speed game like this. It was fun. When you end up using the handbrake correctly, it's so rewarding. And then when you get used to how drafters react to corners and stuff, linking corners with drafters and using the handbrake and all that kind of stuff, it's so rewarding. There's no drift mode in this game, which is unusual because in Underground Rivals a few years before there was, which means obviously there's only race physics. But the race physics are sick and I really enjoyed them. Obviously, because there's only race physics, that means there's only race modes for the most part. These include lap knockout, sprint, circuit, with 3 other special types of modes: delivery, takedown, and escape. I didn't mind delivery too much. It's really annoying. The GPS in this game is absolutely retarded. It will just start pointing all over the place and it's really hard to follow sometimes. Same with the escape missions. They also use the same GPS system. But takedown, oh my days. I tried to not play this mode because of how shit it was. You could go into a car head on at 400 miles per hour and it wouldn't take someone down. It's almost like it doesn't actually matter how hard you hit someone, it's more about how long you hit them. Yeah, it's a very weird game mode. I don't know why it's there. I would have much preferred a drift mode over a takedown mode, but alas, it's in there. You have to do them, unfortunately, because they are part of some of the boss missions. But overall, yeah, not great. I would have much preferred if they kept some type of drag or drift mode in the game, but considering this game was made on a pretty short development period, I can't knock them too much for that. Now, with all this being said, you're probably wondering, where are the police? Yeah, so there isn't any, and I can understand a lot of people will probably look at that and think, I think it would have been nice if they were in there, but at the same time, I don't miss them not being there, and I think that's the more important thing to take out of that. I do think police are integral to a Need for Speed story. I completely do think so, but I think in this game, the lack of them doesn't really hinder the game at all. And at no point was I sitting there thinking, oh, I really miss police. I would really like police to be there. So for the most part, it is the same as Most Wanted 2005. You go around different sections of the map, claiming different territories. Once you claim those territories, you'll see your little crew tag will start to go up everywhere. To complete a territory, you usually have to complete a certain amount of events before you unlock the boss of that territory, and then that territory is yours. Literally the same as the blacklist system. You do a certain amount of races, then you challenge the boss, and then it's your territory. It's the exact same thing. And like Most Wanted 2005, it has the exact same problems. So in the late game, you end up repeating races, and these races are usually the long ones. It gets repetitive and boring, and gets really fucking hard in the late tiers if you don't buy a new car. I was adamant towards the end of the game that I was going to complete one section with my RX-8 until I then moved on to a Carrera GT to try, oh my god, I think it was called the shipment area or whatever. Oh my days, bro. Just look at this gameplay. It was bait. It was so bait. So the progression definitely kind of spikes up if you don't have the right car for the right section, and it ends up becoming a thing where like you just try to do the shortest race possible to get it done and not experience everything there is on offer. It kind of seems like there's a little bit of filler. Luckily, a lot of this is circumvented by the fact the game's only 6 hours and it's a mobile game. So if you were going to play this on a PSP, which I didn't, I played on an emulator, it'd be one of those games that's very pick up and play. You wouldn't be sitting there for hours on end trying to play it like I did through my playthrough. So a lot of what I've said, it depends on how you're going to approach the game and how you're going to play it. But for me, I was just trying to sit down and finish the game, and it became quite tiresome and boring towards the end. Also, there's subclasses for your crew members. One of those subclasses is fixers. Fixers will basically get you more money for races. This is so OP. If you get 2 fixers in your crew, you will just rack up so much money. By the end of the game, I had at least another $250,000 just ready to spend that I didn't need. So one thing I will say is try to aim to have at least 4 cars during your playthrough if you do end up going through this game. Likewise, drafters are OP. If you can get 2 drafters, you can basically just have unlimited boost for the whole of your game period. So yeah, definitely something I recommend. The drafters are just mad in this game. One thing I want to quickly touch on is endgame. I believe there's multiplayer in this game. Obviously, I couldn't play it myself because I was playing on an emulator and, you know, the server's probably be dead right now. But there's also crates and game art, which is really, really cool. Crates just give you specific cars and stuff and like extra rewards. I didn't bother doing any of that for this playthrough, but it's there. They're in the open world. I remember doing them as a kid and it kept me engaged, you know, after I'd finished the game. But the game art's really, really cool. It's literally just concept art that can be found in the settings menu that you unlock as you progress through the game. Really cool stuff. It's really cool. I wish more things like this happened in modern games nowadays. Adds a bit of character to the game and makes it feel a little bit more personal. I just thought this was a really cool thing and I wanted to mention it, which perfectly takes me up to my conclusion. It's a mixed bag, really. The story is good, but it's certainly not the best in the series. The progression can get a little bit boring towards the end. But what makes this game special for me is how the game plays. The scope of this game is mad. The story, even though it was shit, the ending was shit, it had me engaged up until that point. There's honestly so much to like about this game. I'm going to go on record as saying I think Need for Speed Carbon Own the City is the most slept on Need for Speed game in the series and might possibly be one of the most slept on games. Don't dismiss this game just because it's a mobile game and it's not a full-fledged console counterpart. It could very well be. And for me, even with nostalgia to the side, I think it's up there for me as one of my favorites in the series. If you haven't played it, it's easily found on the internet, allegedly. If you enjoyed this video, why not go ahead and hit the like, subscribe. If you really enjoyed it, my Patreon's down below. I have Patreon clothing, which you can't really see. If you become a hyper bruh, you get some Patreon clothing, which you can't really see. So go have a look if that interests you. Also some stickers for the lower tiers. Huge thank yous to everyone that's been supporting the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. You guys have been awesome. Stay safe and peace.
Today, it ain't the same. Every other word is a yeah, okay.